Hey guys, so I'm going to have a look at the 2018 mock paper, question 1, paper 2, which is a probability question. So it says a survey of 136 students was carried out. They were asked whether they were studying French or Spanish. Of those surveyed, 87 studied French, 85 studied Spanish, and 54 studied both. Represent this information on the Venn diagram. So this has already kind of started off for us. When we draw a Venn diagram, which is this here, when two circles intersect, generally you can have three sometimes, and you have this on the outside box, which is called the universe. So this is the universal set. So anything that doesn't fit into French or Spanish goes out here. We always start with what intersects. So 54 there studied both. So there's a few important figures. We've got 136, we've got 87, we've got 85. We've already used 54 there. So what we need to do now is figure out how many study French and how many study Spanish. Well, quite easy. It says that 87 studied French, but we know that 54 studied both French and Spanish. So if I take the 54 away from the 87, we get the number of people that just studied French, which is 33. Again, we do the same for over here. So we know that 85 study Spanish minus 54. Right, we take away 85 minus 54, we get 31. So we get 31 here. And again, we need to figure out how many, so in the universal set, doesn't study French or Spanish. So what we have to do there is we take our 136, that's how many studied in total. We minus our 33, we minus our 54, and we minus our 31. We do minus 33, minus 54, minus 31. And that tells us how many didn't study either French or Spanish, which is 18. A student is chosen at random from those surveyed. Find the probability that the student studies neither language. Well, we know that 18 students don't study either language. Put it over the amount of students that we have, which is 136. That actually simplifies down. So it becomes 9 over 68. It becomes 9 over 68. You can change it to a decimal if you want. The decimal is 0.13. 0.13. So it's the same. 9 over 68 is the same as 0.13. It doesn't matter. I will leave it as a fraction generally. So moving on from this, and I'm just going to write down the figures here because I'm not sure I might need them. So French is 33, French and Spanish is 54, Spanish is 31, neither is 18, or is it 18 yet? And I know that there's 136 in total, and let's just take down the probability that it studies neither is 18 over 68, or 136 out, which is 9 over 68, just in case we need those. Right, so second part now. I'm going to scroll up for this. So it says 2 students were chosen at random from those surveyed who study at least one of these languages. Okay, that's important. So 2 students are chosen at random from those who study at least one. So we're discounting the 18. So the 18 people that don't do any, we're discounting those. Find the probability that both students study one language only. Give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. Now there is a load of different ways to do this. So first thing, we know that there's only 118 people being involved in this. There's 136 in total. 18 people have been taken out because they don't study any languages. So 118 is what we're going to base things on. If you look here, this gives us some indication here of who studies what. So this is French. 33 people study French. So we know 33 people study French only. They're only allowed to study one language. So Spanish is the other option. 31 people study Spanish. All over 118 people in total. So when we do that, we get 64 over 118. And we can probably simplify that down. Does it simplify down? 32 over 59. is it? 0.54. Okay, so 0.54. That's the probability that a student studies one language only. So now, here's where things get tricky. So it says 2 students are chosen at random, right? Study at least one of these languages. Find the probability that both students study one language. So we know the probability of the first student studying one language is this. What about the second student? The tendency here is just to double this. That doesn't make sense. So we can't just double it, right? We've taken one student out of the pot. So instead of there being 118 students now, for the second student, it's only 117 options. Some has been taken out of the pot. And that means that we're going to do the exact same thing here. We're going to have 33 plus 31, but one student's missing. We don't know if it's a French or a Spanish student, so we take one away, all over 118, and we're left with 63 over 117. So the probability of that becomes 7 over 13, or put it into decimal, 7 over 13 is 0.53. Now, that is the probability that the first student studies one language. The probability that the second student we choose studies one language. To find the probability that we get both of them, we actually have to times them together. So do 0.54 times by 0.53. We multiply them together, we get 0.29. So the probability that both students, right, study one language is 0.29. A little bit difficult, that takes a little bit of work. So when the responses of 14 additional students are included in the survey, the probability that a student is chosen at random studies both French and Spanish increases to 2/5. How many of these additional students study both French and Spanish? Okay, so this is a little bit more difficult. Okay, it isn't actually taking into account the traditional probability. We're working backwards here. So, important thing, we know 14 additional students are included. So let me just get rid of this just to give us a little bit more space. Scroll up here. So we've got 14 additional students. So our number of students, I'm just going to put hashtag students increases. So we get 136 plus 14. So we're now looking at 150 students. So we're looking at 150 students. So the probability of a student chosen at random studies both French and Spanish is 2/5. So all we need to do is figure out what 2/5 of 150 is. If there's 150 students there and 2/5 of them study French and Spanish, well, that's going to give me 60. So what we have now is we have the number of students who study both French and Spanish is 60 because it's 2/5 multiplied by the new number of students, which is 150. Now, the question is a little bit poorly asked here. So it says, how many of these additional students study both French and Spanish? Well, 60 is the overall amount of people that study both French and Spanish, but the original number was 54. So the question's actually asking us to take them away from each other, which is 6 new students. Now, I think that's poorly worded. The majority of marks go for getting this, but what we need to realise is that sometimes you have to read a question a couple of times to make sure that you understand what's being asked, because you might not quite get there at the answer. You might think you have it right, but there's a little bit missed at the end. Find the highest possible number of additional students who study Spanish only. Okay, so this one is a little bit trickier. So there's 14 new students. You know that. Okay, 6 of them 6 study French and Spanish. So there's 8 left over. We don't know about those 8. So those 8, for all we know, could just study Spanish. So we do 14 minus 6. That gives us 8 possibilities there. Just going to have a little look at question 2. We're not going to do every part. We're going to have a little look at part 1 and part 2 very quickly. So, question number 2 here. Circle geometry. It says a circle has a radius of 5 centimeters and touches both the x-axis and the y-axis as shown. Hence, write down the coordinates at the center of C. So C is going to be this point here. It's actually a very easy question that is kind of worded in a slightly more awkward way. So we know that the center is not 0, 0 because x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared is 0, 0. That's a quite common question. So this is going to have your h and k as the center, and we're told that the radius is 5. So if you look here, this is my 0, 0. If I go across 5 and up 5 here, that's going to give me my center. It has to be because the circle's touching both those axes. So the center, this is 5 and 5. 5 across, 5 up. Verify using algebra that the point 98 is on C. Well, it's actually quite easy to do that. But first of all, I need to write out my equation of a circle. So, h and k is my center. So that's 5 and 5. And my radius is 5 centimeters here. Now, for a circle, my formula is x minus h squared plus y minus k all to be squared is equal to r squared. Okay? X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So I can fill this out. I can do x minus, now h is going to be 5 all to be squared plus y minus 5 all to be squared is equal to 5 squared. And 5 squared gives me 25. So in order to figure out if a point lies on this circle here, all I do is for x and for y, I sub in 5 and 5. So if I do, sorry, not 5 and 5, my points are 9 and 8. So if I do 9 minus 5 squared, and I do 8 minus 5 squared. So 9 minus 5 squared gives me 4 squared, plus 8 minus 5 squared gives me 3 squared. Is that equal to 25? 4 squared plus 3 squared, well, 16 plus 9 gives me 25, and 25 is equal to 25. So I know that that point lies somewhere on this circle.